Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving straight into a really dramatic turning point from an ancient text, the attempted assassination of Kunti and the Pandavas. The whole thing set up by Duryodhana in the House of Lac.
That's right. A pivotal moment.
So our mission, if you will, in this deep dive is to unpack that, understand the motivations behind it all, how they tried to pull it off, how it got foiled, and what happened right after for everyone involved.
Exactly. And it's compelling stuff.
It really is. You flagged this one, and I can see why. It's pure high-stakes political drama, deception, survival.
And it tells us so much about the characters, the power dynamics back then. It's not just an old story. It feels surprisingly relevant,
Yeah.
about human nature.
Okay, so let's get into the conspiracy itself. This wasn't just Duryodhana acting alone on impulse, was it?
Oh, definitely not. The text makes it clear. Duryodhana is central, absolutely driven by this deep jealousy, zavist, as the text puts it, and fear, really, of the Pandas.
Fear of their popularity.
Yeah, their influence, their legitimate claim. But he ropes in others. Sakuni, Dusasana, even Karna is implicated. And crucially, it all happens with Dhritarashtra's, let's say, tacit approval.
Ah, Dhritarashtra, the blind king. That always adds complexity, doesn't it? How did Duryodhana get his father, the king, to okay such a treacherous plan?
He was clever, manipulative. Duryodhana played directly on Dhritarashtra's own insecurities, his anxieties about his son's future, their lineage.
How so? What was his specific argument?
He pointed out how the citizens were really warming to Yudhishthira, looking up to him, almost bypassing Dhritarashtra in a sense.
Right.
And he brought up the past. Reminded Dhritarashtra that Pandu, his brother, had earned the kingdom through merit, while Dhritarashtra himself was initially sidelined because of his blindness.
Oof, hitting below the belt there.
Totally. He basically said, look, if Yudhishthira takes the throne, his line continues, and our sons. They become irrelevant, dependent. It tapped right into Dhritarashtra's deepest fears for his own boys.
Wow. So securing the dynasty, that was the core pitch. But the text says Dhritarashtra hesitated at first. He wasn't immediately sold.
No, not immediately. And that's interesting. He wasn't blind, metaphorically speaking, to the risks. He knew Pandu was virtuous, popular. He knew the Pandavas themselves were loved by the people.
So he worried about backlash.
Absolutely. The text mentions he was aware of Pandu's standing, the loyalty he commanded. Harming Yudhishthira, who was so beloved, could spark, a revolt. It could turn the citizens, the army, even respected figures like Bhima and Drona against them.
A classic ruler's dilemma, ambition versus stability.
Exactly. Personal gain versus, keeping the peace and legitimacy.
So that's a big hurdle for Duryodhana. How did he get his father past those fears?
More manipulation, really. He downplayed the danger, suggested they could just, win over the people with gifts, honors, basically bribe them.
By their loyalty.
Kind of. And he framed sending the Pandavas away to this place, Varanavata, as just a temporary thing, a gentle means, he called it, to get them out of the picture for a bit.
Gentle means.
Right, yeah. He implied that once Duryodhana had things firmly under control, maybe Kunti and her sons could even come back. It made the whole thing sound less drastic, less final, more like a strategic retreat for the Pandavas.
Very sneaky. Cloaking dark intentions and reasonable-sounding plans.
Textbook move for power plays, isn't it?
So this leads to the trip itself, Varanavata. What was the cover story? Why were they supposedly being sent there?
The cover story was quite appealing, actually. They were invited to enjoy a big festival, the festival of Pasupati, Shiva, happening in Varanavata.
Okay.
And the Dhritarashtra had his counselors, guys he'd picked, talk it up. Described the city as charming, the festival as delightful, decorations that would charm the hearts of all spectators.
Building it up?
Totally. And it worked. The text says these descriptions really sparked the Pandavas' interest, made them actually want to go. Shows how easily propaganda, even back then, could work.
A manufactured desire. And Dhritarashtra himself played along with this pleasant facade.
Oh, completely. He put on a big show of benevolence, told them, go, take your friends, your followers, have a wonderful time, enjoy yourselves like gods, give out gifts.
Wow.
Stay a while, relax, then come on back to Hastinapura, all sounding perfectly generous and harmless.
But Yudhishthira, he's the wise one. He didn't buy it, did he?
Not for a second. The text is clear on that. He saw right through Dhritarashtra's motives. He understood the underlying threat.
So why did he go along with it?
Pragmatism, it seems. He knew his own position was weak. He felt he didn't have strong allies right then. His brothers were still young, so he accepted it almost resignedly.
A calculated risk, maybe. We're just bowing to the inevitable.
Probably a bit of both. He was respectful on the surface, said his goodbyes to the elders, the citizens, even Gandhari. But inside, he knew this was dangerous.
Okay, enter Vidura, the wise advisor. He's crucial here, isn't he? He figures it out.
Absolutely pivotal. Vidura is portrayed as incredibly insightful, principled. The text literally says he could tell what these wicked guys were planning just by looking at their faces.
Wow, really? Just by looking at them?
That's what the source says. He was fiercely loyal to the Pandavas, saw the danger, and decided he had to warn them. And not just warn them, help them escape.
His ability to read people, read the situation. That's key in these kinds of political minefields.
Definitely. And it wasn't just intuition. As a major figure in the court, Vidura would have picked up on things, heard whispers. He knew this wasn't just a vacation plan.
Right, he had inside knowledge.
Okay,
So the fake invite is out, Yudhishthira is suspicious, but going along, Vidura knows the score. Now, the house itself, the infamous House of Lac, tell us about its construction. This death trap.
Duryodhana put his counselor, Purachana, in charge of it. A trusted guy. Promised him riches, power, the usual rewards for doing dirty work secretly.
In the location.
Strategic. Near the town's arsenal in Bharanavata. The house itself, well, it was basically built to burn. Packed with highly flammable stuff. Hemp, resin, ghee, clarified butter oil, fat, loads of lac.
Like the resin.
Exactly. All mixed into the plaster, the walls, but cleverly disguised with a layer of earth, mud plaster, to make it look normal.
So it wouldn't immediately seem like a tinderbox.
Precisely. It was a deliberate, calculated design, meant to look safe, even inviting.
That's horrifying. The level of premeditation.
Yeah.
And the disguise was part of Purachana's instructions.
Yes. He was told to furnish it luxuriously. Nice seats, beds, conveyances, everything to make the Pandavas and Kunti feel comfortable, secure, lower their guard completely.
Make them feel welcome in their own funeral pyre.
Yeah.
Chilling.
It really is.
But Vidura knew. How did he get the warning to Yudhishthira without tipping anyone off? That must have been tricky.
Extremely tricky. Any open warning would blow his cover, endanger everyone. So Vidura used something clever. The text says he spoke to Yudhishthira in the Mlecha language.
Mlecha? What's that?
It's described as a sort of jargon, perhaps a language or dialect unintelligible to others present. Both Vidura and Yudhishthira knew it, so they could communicate secretly right there in plain sight.
Like a secret code language.
Essentially, yes. A way to pass vital information under the radar. It highlights how crucial discreet communication is when you're surrounded by enemies.
So what was the coded message? What did Vidura actually say?
He used metaphors. Very clever. He talked about sharp weapons, not made of steel, that could cut the body.
Fire.
Exactly. He mentioned the consumer of straw and wood, the dryer of the dew, more fire references. But he added that this fire does not burn the inmates of a hole, hinting at underground safety.
A tunnel.
Right. He explicitly advised Yudhishthira to make their home unto that of a jackal, meaning with many escape routes. He also stressed vigilance, keeping the senses sharp. It was dense with meaning.
Incredible. Trusting Yudhishthira to pick up on all those clues.
Mm-hmm.
And did he? Did Yudhishthira get it?
He did. He understood the warning's gravity. But interestingly, the text suggests he didn't immediately tell Kunti or his brothers.
Why not?
Probably caution. He needed to confirm things, figure out a plan, maybe avoid panicking them until he had a clearer path forward. Shows his leadership, bearing that burden initially.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And Vidura didn't just warn them with words, right? He sent practical help.
Yes, that's the other crucial part. He sent a miner, a guy he trusted completely.
A minder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to prove he was legit, the miner apparently used the same coded message Vidura had given Yudhishthira, like a password.
Okay.
His job, to secretly dig a tunnel, a subterranean passage leading out from inside the House of Lac, an escape route hidden.
Wow. Vidura thought of everything. Warning and the means to act on it.
Exactly. It shows his commitment wasn't just passive worry, it was active support.
So this tunnel's being dug secretly. What are the Pandavas doing all this time, just waiting in this fancy fire trap?
They were playing a very dangerous game. Outwardly, they acted trusting towards Purachana, the guy overseeing them, didn't want to arouse suspicion.
Keep up appearances.
Right. But inwardly, always alert. They apparently slept with weapons nearby, and during the day, they went hunting a lot.
Practicing their archery.
That, but also, the text implies, to familiarize themselves with the forest, the escape routes, the terrain, knowledge that would be vital later. It shows they weren't passive victims. They were actively preparing.
Smart. Deceiving the deceiver while planning their own move, and Purachana bought it. He thought they were unsuspecting.
For a whole year, apparently. The text says they lived there for a year, acting normal, seeming content. Purachana felt reassured, thought his plan was working perfectly.
A whole year. The tension must have been immense. So what finally triggered the escape? Why then?
It seems less like one specific event and more like Yudhishthira deciding, after careful observation and with the tunnel presumably ready, that the time was right. The risk of staying had become too high.
Okay, so he makes the call.
Yes. He reveals the plan to his brothers, Bhima, Arjuna, the twins. They'd set fire to the arsenal, first create a diversion, maybe block pursuit from that side, then kill Purachana.
Take out their jailer.
Exactly. Prevent him raising the alarm. Then use the tunnel to escape during the chaos, hopefully without anyone realizing they'd survived. Vanish.
A bold plan. Okay, the night of the escape. Things get even more intense. What happened?
Well, that night, Kunti was doing some charity, giving food to brahmanas, and then, completely by chance, this Nishada woman shows up with her 5 sons. Yeah, a tribal woman. She and her sons were apparently quite drunk, seeking food, and ended up falling asleep right there, inside the house of lack.
Oh no. That sounds ominous.
It was a fateful, tragic coincidence. Unplanned, unforeseen, but with huge consequences. It shows how even the best plans can be affected by chance.
Right. So they fall asleep there. Then what?
Later that night, when things quieted down, Bhima put their plan into action. He started setting fires.
Where?
Strategically, where Purachana was sleeping, definitely. At the main door to block it. And in other spots around the house to make sure it went up fast and furious. Swift, decisive action.
Get it done quickly before anyone realizes. And then, the escape.
As the flames roared up, they slipped into the hidden opening of the tunnel, disappeared underground just as the whole place became an inferno.
And the townspeople.
The fire, the noise, it woke them up. They saw the house burning and immediately assumed the worst.
That the Pandavas were inside.
Exactly. They figured Duryodhana and Purachana had finally done it. There were cries, lamentations, people condemning Dhritarashtra, blaming Purachana. But critically, no one knew they'd escaped.
So the public reaction actually helped cover their tracks.
In a way, yes. The focus was on the tragedy, the perceived murder, not on searching for survivors.
The next day, when the fire died down, what did they find?
They found Purachana's body burnt to a crisp. And tragically, they found the remains of the Nishada woman and her 5 sons.
Oh, the poor woman and her children.
Yes, and because they were found in the house, everyone assumed.
But it was Kunti and the 5 Pandavas.
Exactly. The numbers matched, the circumstances fit. It was a terrible, tragic case of mistaken identity, but it cemented the belief that the Pandavas were dead.
Which allowed the real Pandavas to get away clean.
It did. It provided the perfect cover.
What about the tunnel? Did anyone find the entrance?
No. Vidura's miner was thorough. He apparently covered the entrance with ashes and debris after they left, hiding it completely. Another detail showing how well-planned the escape was.
Incredible foresight. So word gets back to Dhritarashtra. The Pandavas are dead. How did he react?
Publicly, a big display of grief. The text says he wept, lamented loudly, saying Pandu had died all over again, now his sons were gone.
Putting on a show.
Seems like it. He ordered lavish funeral rites for them. But the text adds a little detail. Vidura, who knew the truth, did not weep much.
A subtle clue.
A very telling detail about who knew what.
Okay, so while everyone in Hastinapura is mourning or pretending to mourn, the real Pandavas are...
Where?
Fleeing through the wilderness.
Yes, and it was tough. They came out of the tunnel into this dense forest. They were exhausted, thirsty, scared of being caught. It was an ordeal.
And Bhima stepped up again, right?
Massively. The text gives this incredible image of Bhima basically carrying everyone. Kunti on his shoulders, the twins tucked onto his sides, holding Yudhishthira and Arjuna by the hands, just powering through the forest.
Wow. His strength was legendary.
And his devotion to his family. He literally carried them through the worst of it.
Where were they headed? Did they have a destination?
They eventually reached the Ganga River, managed to get across with help from some boatmen, and luckily, a good wind. But they kept moving south, using the stars to guide them, still needing to stay hidden.
Still vulnerable.
Yeah.
But Vidura wasn't done helping them, was he? His network was still active.
No, he wasn't done. He sent another messenger, someone he trusted, to find them.
How did the messenger even locate them out there?
Good question. The text says he found them by the Ganga, maybe saw them measuring the river depth or something. And this messenger didn't just bring words, he brought a boat.
Another boat.
Not just any boat, a much better one. Strong, fast, with sails and mechanisms designed to travel against wind and current. A serious upgrade for their escape. Vidura was ensuring their long-term getaway.
That's serious support. Practical support. Did the messenger have another message too?
He did. Again, he used the coded phrase, the consumer of straw and wood thing, to prove he was from Vidura.
Right, the password.
And he passed on Vidura's reassurance. Words of encouragement, predicting they would eventually overcome their enemies, Duryodhana, Karna, Sakuni. Then he helped them onto the superior boat, saw them safely across the river, and went back.
And the Pandavas sent a message back with him.
Yes, a message of thanks back to Vidura, acknowledging his absolutely critical help. It shows that bond, that reliance on loyal allies.
So they finally escaped the immediate danger, thanks to Vidura, their own wits, and Bhima's strength. What an ordeal. Okay, let's zoom out. We've gone through this whole intense sequence. For everyone listening, for the learner, what are the big takeaways here?
Well, several things stand out, I think. First, just the sheer ruthlessness of Duryodhana's plot, driven by that deep envy, that fear of being overshadowed. It's a stark look at ambition gone toxic.
Definitely. What else?
Second, how absolutely vital intelligence and allies are. Vidura is the perfect example. His foresight, his coded messages, the miner, the boat. The Pandavas simply wouldn't have survived without him. It underscores that you need help, you need trustworthy people.
Yeah, you can't always go it alone against overwhelming odds.
Exactly. And third, maybe the most unsettling thing, is that gap between appearance and reality. The charming festival hiding a plot, the fancy house being a fire trap, Dhritarashtra's tears masking his, well, complicity. It's a reminder to look beneath the surface.
Some really powerful aha moments there. That contrast between what seems real and what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Very relevant, always. Okay, before we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with something to chew on, a final thought.
Okay.
Given what happened to the Nishada woman and her children, that tragic unintended consequence, what does it make us think about secrecy? Even well-intentioned secrecy like Vidura's. Was the cost justified?
That's a tough ethical question.
Right. And how might things have played out differently without that accidental misidentification?
Yeah.
What is this whole episode, the plotting, the near miss, the escape, the collateral damage, tell us about maybe fate versus individual action or the nature of justice in this epic world?
Lots to ponder there, the complexity, the moral gray areas.
Exactly. Something for you all to think about. We definitely encourage digging deeper into this incredible text and its characters. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.